Welcome to the first event with Try Not To Overthink It. We're four mental health professionals that host a weekly podcast on YouTube where we discuss multitude of topics. I'm Chasmine, one of the co-hosts of the show, and I'll be leading this conversation with you all tonight. I'm joined by the other co-hosts, Khalil, Unique,
Hello.
and RJ.
Hey,
Okay, we appreciate you joining today for the convo. If you haven't already liked or subscribed to our channel, we're trying not to overthink it. You can also listen on YouTube, Spotify, and other podcast available apps. So I'll give everyone time to kind of discuss their area of practice, who they are, and maybe a fun fact. We'll start with Khalil.
Hey, I'm Khalil Franklin. I am a licensed social worker in the state of Alabama. I've worked in the mental health field for the last 7 years. I'm actually under supervision right now. I'll be done in August. So hopefully, I'll be able to have my own private practice and join Unique and try to start my own business. Fun fact about myself is I am from Prince George's County, Maryland. And a lot of people don't know that. They think I'm from Huntsville, but I have to represent, you know what I'm saying, still DC, you know what I mean? Shout out to my people uptown right now having a Memorial Day picnic, you know what I'm saying, Folo and the rest of them, you know. So that's a fun fact about me is I represent my city.
Unique.
Hello, I'm Unique. Spelled just like the word. Um, I am a private practice owner and wellness coach. I am from Maryland also, and I see clients outside of Maryland, all over Maryland, looking to expand to the state that I currently live in, and several other adjoining states. Fun fact about me, I believe I've lived in several different states.
Okay. RJ.
hi, my name is RJ White. I am a licensed professional counselor. I have been practicing and being a therapist now for almost 10 years. Um, Fun fact, I have, lived pretty much everywhere there is to live, pretty much for the most part.
Again, Chasmine, the host for tonight. I have been a therapist within crisis for the past 3 years. I'm under supervision and do have a practice as well with Jonathan Williams. And I'm looking forward to being done with supervision and just working towards my LPC. And I am a doctoral student. So, fun fact is, I enjoy shopping. So, let's go ahead and get into some of the questions. These questions were a lot, um, just because I think that a lot of people ask them, and in addition to some things that we have to discuss, as far as misconceptions, rumors, and kind of a lot of belief that is surrounded by mental health. May is Mental Health Month. But as RJ, Khalil, and Unique know, we have really pushed really hard to, come on and talk about a lot of the topics that most people are informed about. So, question number one. Is it okay to be a Christian and experience suicidal thoughts and depression?
I have a book on it, so whoever want to go first can
Hey,
I
go
mean,
first.
well, I'm gonna jump into it. I'm gonna jump into it because when Chasmine told me this question, the first thing that popped in my mind was Elijah running from Jezebel. I mean, literally, he told God, I just want to die in chapter 19, 1 Kings chapter 19. He said, I just want to die. And that always stuck out to me because I'm like, you just killed all these prophets of Baal. People are supporting you. You call down fire from heaven. And then all of a sudden, you get anxious, you run, you're afraid for your life, and you're like, God, just kill me now. I want to
Mhm.
die. And that's suicidal ideations, obviously. And the crux of the whole situation is, I think we as human beings, when we lose faith, we can definitely go down that road of deep depression, man. And it's a human emotion that'll come on. And I've seen it with my patients. They'll say, "Yeah, I just had a thought the other day. Like, what if I don't? What if I never existed? Or what if I don't wake up?" And when they have these suicide ideations, I talk to them, and I was like, I don't want them to think they're like, you know what I mean, not like anybody else and they're just so out of whack and so crazy. No, people have those thoughts. Probably some of your
Mm-hmm.
family members might have those thoughts more than you would even like to know. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just like, look, this has been going on for a while. This isn't something new. People have that when they lose faith. So, Unique, I'm gonna pass it to you.
Okay. I mean, I'm right along the same lines as you. We just preached my past we had a pastor to come and preach at my church, and he pointed out Jeremiah. We look at Jonah. Jonah told him, throw me overboard.
You
You
overboard.
look at Job. Job
Yeah.
says, curse the day that I was born. You look at Jesus. He was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he was sweating blood and sweat. You look at Peter. Peter had identity and anxiety issues. Mary and Martha, grief and family issues. James and John, anger issues. Thomas, attachment issues. Depression is a disease, and
Mm-hmm.
suicide is a symptom of depression. Like the
Mm-hmm.
few examples given, when they encountered Jesus, they were not punished for being human. As long as they stayed connected with God, their lives were changed. Depression doesn't draw us away from Christ, it's a way to Him. And so I think sometimes as Christians, we like to think about being perfect, but literally being a Christian is being a follower
Mm-hmm.
of Christ. So anything that leads you closer to Him, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, anything that puts you on your knees, it's an avenue to
Right.
God. So when you're talking about is it okay? Absolutely. Because in the
Mm-hmm.
Bible it says, I came not to
Condemn the world.
well, yeah, I came out to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved. But he was telling the Pharisees and the Sadducees, I didn't come to affirm your ways. I came to talk about the ways of the Father, and the ways of the Father were not for the perfect, but for the sick. And so when we think
Mm-hmm.
about depression as a disease, he literally came for you. Suicide is a symptom, so he came for people who have symptoms of sin. Suicide is attached to sin. If you're thinking suicidal thoughts, it's only because of sin, the sinful world that we live in. So use that as an avenue to get closer to God. God, I'm having these thoughts, I'm having these ideations, and I know this is not your will for me. This is just a product of the environment that I am living in. This is a product of the world that I am a part of. And I long to draw closer to you. I long to think of things that are higher than you. And when you don't see this world as your home, then you're able to elevate higher and say, I know that this is
Yeah.
not my end.
Preach, sis, preach.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna just piggyback on that, man. Like his strength is made perfect in my weakness. When I have that broken and contrite heart and I come to God, you know what I mean? That's when I can really lean on my creator. All right. When I'm trying to lean on my own self-will, that's when I start getting anxious because I don't know the future. I don't know what is out there. The unknown scares me. And then with anxiety comes depression, right? And so I start thinking to myself, well, like, I need to get to my higher power. I need to get to my creator who's stronger. And then I have to increase in my faith. So I'm very much following where you're at, Unique. And I hope everybody else out there is getting what we're putting down. I hope they're catching it.
And
I
go
don't
ahead.
think that being a Christian excludes you from having mental health
Mm-hmm.
issues.
Right.
Like once you're honest with yourself about the source of your worry or the source of your concern, um, that's when you can kind of bring it before God. Everything, including the obvious concerns, the ones that you're afraid that people are going to judge you for, the ones that you're embarrassed about, the ones that you may not even understand, whatever you feel it, admit it, and then, seek God, through prayer. I mean, for me, one of the things that I like to do a lot of times, like with my clients, is when they are speaking to me about anything, especially when I know that it's a bad idea, because it's different when you are, you know, left to your own devices. When we're left to our own devices, tend to make poor choices. We tend to make impulsive decisions that, not really understanding first, second, third order effects.
Right.
And so a lot of times, like when I know that something is a bad idea, rather than tell my client that's a bad idea, I parrot it back to them just the way that they said it so they could hear it for themselves. And so a lot of times when you pray out loud, not to yourself, not mumbling under your breath, but when you're praying out loud and you're turning it over to God, a lot of times you can kind of process what you're feeling and process the thoughts that you were experiencing and be able to reach a better conclusion than the original or sometimes impulsive thoughts that you may be experiencing.
Right.
Well, there's also a release, right? In the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve, God said, Adam, where are you? It wasn't because he didn't know where Adam was. He
That's right.
said he could see all, he knew all, but it was
Yeah.
for Adam to confess, I have detached from what you've told me. And it was an
Mhm.
opportunity for God to be God and say, now I've opened up the door for salvation. When you accept that I am not aligned with the Father, then the Father's able to say, come back home. Let me rectify this thing with you. Let me save you from the mess that you're in. But just like we tell our clients, you can't get help if you don't know you have a
Mm.
problem. The problem is always sin. It's
It
always
always
sin.
is.
Acknowledge, God, my sin has detached me from you, whether it's the sin of doubt, whether it's the sin of unfaithfulness, whether it's the sin that it was not even our fault, whether it was your mother's sin, your father's sin.
Right.
Anytime sin detaches us from the Father, we have to get on our knees and say, Father God, I come before you, acknowledging my sin, and I'm asking you for you to advocate, stand in the middle for me.
Wow.
1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your cares on him because he cares for you. There's nothing that can separate us, Paul said, nothing that can separate us from the love of God.
Amen.
When they said nothing, and Paul goes on to talk about that thing,
All the
but
different
it's
things.
nothing that can separate us from him.
Yeah.
There's no worry that he hasn't worried. In the New Testament, it talks about how Jesus has felt all of our infirmities. He's felt depression. He's felt anxiety. He's felt
Mhm.
worry. He's felt loneliness. He felt it all. So to be able to have an ally with Christ to say, Jesus literally stood in the gap. He understands. Sometimes, like Rajama was saying, if you just speak it,
Mhm.
there are words, just like the words that captivate you that are saying you want to end it. There are words that
Right.
are standing in the gap to release you. If you just say, I can't do this, God is saying, but with me, you can.
That's right.
Amen. Amen.
Accountability partner.
Right.
Mhm.
When I say that, I think about having these conversations with clients and they're on their last. It's not nothing I can say that can reassure them to get them to the point to say, hey, I don't want to do this. I have to pray hard, I have to pray long, and ask God to intervene on my behalf because that's not something I can deal with on my own. And we have to think about, too, every encounter God had with, or Jesus had with anybody that had infirmaries. He was praying. He was like, hey, I can't do this by
Mhm.
myself. Like the lady at the well with the
He
issue.
went to
He
the
did.
Father.
Like,
Yeah.
and as therapists, that's what clients have to understand. We're vessels as well. So do not be
Mhm.
scared to reach out for help.
Mhm.
I've told my clients, nah, you don't get to die in this treatment program. I say, you gotta, if you're trying to die, you gotta find another program. You gotta do that outside of my program. Because if you in here, you're gonna get help. I'm sorry, you shouldn't have came here. This was the wrong program to come to if you
You're
wanted to
gonna live
die.
in
You
here.
would live
You're
and
gonna
not
Yeah.
live.
die.
You can die the day you discharge, but
Right.
you will not kill yourself here. You're bad. Wrong program.
Wrong person, wrong therapist, wrong idea.
Wrong program, wrong therapist. You're bad. And it's not my bad. You're bad because I got to live with that.
Right.
Yep.
Right? That's going to be on my conscience. So
Yep.
you go head on. You will be telling me you don't want help if you leave, and I will let you
We would
go.
discharge you, let you go AMA, but not on
I
my
will
watch.
let you go freely, but you will not die on my watch. I have sent clients to the hospital. They took pills, and I sent their tails right to the hospital to get their stomach pumped. Yep.
Mhm.
You're not going to die here.
Right.
You can die somewhere else, just not here.
As a therapist, do you believe that it's important to have a belief system or prayer life?
100%.
Right.
To
Yep.
be connected to some type of
Mhm.
higher power. I can't tell people that,
Who to pray
to
to?
keep on. Yeah, that mine, I identify as a Christian.
Mhm.
And so I pray to, the God of my upbringing.
Mhm.
But I do believe having a connection to a higher source outside of yourself is definitely important
For sure.
because we teach people about community, and how can I teach somebody about building a safety net, a community, and being held accountable if I myself am not accountable to something higher than me?
Right.
Yep.
I think I learned that working in substance abuse for the last 5 years on and off. I'm full time in substance abuse right now, and struggling with substance abuse myself. But having my own conception of who my higher power was, or who God was, or who the Creator was, helped me a lot. But I always try to tell my patients, right now, you're running on your own self will. All right,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
self will run riot. all right, is the downfall of many people who are addicted to substances, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
if it's my first thought or my best thoughts is what I've been doing, and it's got me in this place where I'm in the jails and institutions, right? My next step is
Mm-hmm.
death, obviously. I'm going to have to start believing in something outside of myself.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And you ask them, have you ever been out to the beach, right? And looked at the ocean and you see that vast ocean that's so large and so huge, or been on the top of a mountain, been on like a rock climbing expedition. You get on top of that mountain, you look down on the cities underneath, and everything looks so small. You start realizing how small you are. All right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the
Mm-hmm.
sun, you notice how big it is and how it supplies the whole galaxy, right? And you start thinking, yeah, there's got to be something greater than me, because there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
other things that are greater than me. And you start to really look at your life. And if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have a connection to something greater than yourself, even if it's just the group, all right. Even if you go to AA, it's just the group and you're using those people and taking their suggestions. They're greater than you. Look at Christians from
Mm-hmm.
back in the day. Well, not all, they weren't Christians, but look at the believers from back in the day, right? It tells you when they were on one accord, all right, they were building a tower up to the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the
Mm-hmm.
people got together when they were on one accord. All right. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is. If we're all on one accord and we want to stay clean, we want to stay sober, we want to do something productive in life, just like us four right here, we're on one accord, right? We started this with nothing and we've been building. And so that's what
Mm-hmm.
happens. You're going to be successful, all right, if you have some guidance with other people who are like minded and who want the right thing for you. So think of something outside of yourself, and then you can start to build a better connection, hopefully with some prayer, some meditation, something like that, to be able to quiet some of those thoughts that are in your
Some
head.
mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Oh, mindfulness,
Yeah.
that's one of my
Hmm.
favorite. I do it every day. Even when I take my dog on a walk, I got to get outside of myself because inside here can be crazy. I
Yeah.
can come up with some
Mm-hmm.
wild ideas on my own.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I have to quiet them voices
Hmm.
sometimes. I got a committee in my head that'll tell me some real good stuff, and it won't always be good.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to get outside myself and get in with the creator.
Hmm.
I have to
Mm-hmm.
at all times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as providers, I mean, we can't tell you who to pray to or who to worship, but I do echo the sentiment that it is important that you have some sort of connection with something that is higher than yourself. For a lot of us, when we are left to our own devices, we, like Lil said, we will get into things that we shouldn't be getting into, and by having that connection with the being that is higher than yourself, you are now being held
Hmm.
accountable. Because even if you're not being held accountable to yourself, you're being held accountable to somebody or something
Hmm.
else.
Yeah.
And
To a
so it's
community.
important it's important for you to be able to establish that connection and have that relationship, and for that relationship to be healthy and for it to be consistent. There is no point in having a relationship that is inconsistent or wishy-washy or sometimey. And it needs to be one that is going to be beneficial and be something that is going to be positive and constructive in your life. If it is going to be something that is negative or a distraction, you are less likely to participate in it, and or it is going to cause you to go down a path that you can't come back from.
Most definitely.
Yep.
And and
Absolutely.
as therapists, I think that, we deal with so many different issues and problems that I think that we do have to have a outlet. I went to the
Mm-hmm.
OBGYN probably like 6 months ago, and he was like, the job that you work is extremely stressful, so you do have to have an
Mhm.
outlet. And I was like, no, but I think my belief system has ideally been the most affirming and reassuring one that I can actually lean and depend on in the community that church provides, and those shared experiences that a lot of us have. And it's a testimony, and just being able
Mm-hmm.
to share it with somebody that, hey, I did this but it worked out, or I did that, God
Mm-hmm.
brought me through this and you can too. So it's
Yeah.
a reaffirming to so many different clients to see how life do unfold, and God does heal, and he's still in the healing business. And whoever you do
Mhm.
believe in or pray to, or whatever, doctrine that you go by, the belief system is still in place. I think it,
Yep.
it does have commandments and different rules and structures that we are, supposed to follow, and it does provide accountability. But I think us therapists do need to tap into that power source.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
agree.
All right, so moving forward to our next question. This one is interesting because I think that a lot of people say, "Oh, they're gonna lock me up in a crazy house," or "Oh, they're gonna take me to the hospital. My family gonna leave me there." You know,
And they is no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
or like people say, "Oh, they're gonna commit me. They're gonna take me to the place, and I'll be in a white straight jacket." Like the movie, like Girls Interrupted, a lot of the movie where, back in the days that they would take you and lock you away and you didn't see your family for like 2 or 3 years. And they're like, well, she's still crazy.
The secret is those places don't
They,
exist anymore.
Right.
They do not.
That is so dramatized. Like I would love as a mental health professional, I would love to see something like that. I think it would be very interesting. But they don't exist.
Yeah.
I've worked in a lockdown facility. They don't exist.
Mm.
Nobody's in straitjackets anymore. They don't
No.
even do restraints like that anymore.
Right.
I mean, they do have seclusion rooms, but they're
Yeah.
not padded rooms,
Right.
like what you see on television and movies.
People don't know the laws have changed.
Yeah.
Deinstitutionalization period began after Kennedy. Like there's laws. People don't realize that. So during the late 60s, things started to change. And as you notice, it's very hard if you have a family member that suffers from mental illness, it's very hard to get them in a group home these days.
Yes, or anything.
It's very hard to get them committed
Yes.
these days. So,
Mhm.
like the 5150 and all that good stuff and stuff that started in Florida and everything, people
Baker's
just throwing you up.
acting and yeah.
Right. Baker's Act, all that. That stuff doesn't really happen the way you would like to think it happens. So when you go to the hospital, if you start pushing up too much of a fuss, yeah, they might hit you with some Ativan. They might slow you down with some Haldol. But after that, they
Love a
probably
little
gonna kick you out.
Haldol.
They probably gonna kick
Love a
you
little
out.
Haldol, but that's it. You get 3 days and then bye bye.
Well, that is contingent on the actual person.
The severity.
So you cannot just be locked away and the keys thrown away. Now, every state has its own version of the Baker Act, which is in Florida, and then the code 5150 or the 5150 hole, which is in California. Every state has their version of that, which is basically temporary involuntary examination for psychiatric distress. And if you are deemed a threat to yourself and or others at the end of that observational period, they will move forward with potentially an involuntary commitment. Now, that involuntary commitment varies from state to state. Here in the state of Alabama, it's up to 150 days. That's 5 months. By roughly day 80, day 90, if you're still presenting with severe symptomology, you can be extended and recommitted for another 150 days. Now we're looking at 10 months. Now there are facilities where you can, go sit for an extended period of time, but normally that is reserved for someone who is either exceedingly unwell and is showing that they are not improving, their symptomology is not improving, or the person has committed a crime and it is a very serious crime. It's not like a pity pat crime of like you stole a stick of bubble gum or a candy bar. Like it's a serious crime that you committed while you were mentally unwell or mentally unstable. And even then, there are hearings and there are meetings in which they staff your case periodically because they want to see that you are in the least restrictive level of care.
Right.
And sometimes that least restrictive level of care is a step down from one of those involuntary commitment facilities. Other times it can be to a group home. Other times it can be to what is called a crisis stabilization unit. Or it may be out to the community, but that all factors into how well a client is doing in treatment. Now, again, you have to be, in order for all of that to occur, you have to be a threat to yourself or others. I have worked my first job right out of graduate school is working in the emergency room doing psych screenings.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have to argue with doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners and physicians assistants that this their verbiage was this person's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but are they a threat to themselves or others?
Yes.
Right.
For some people, their psychiatric symptomology is baseline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have a client that I work with, on my program. He baseline sees and hears things.
Right.
Now, granted, in the time that I've worked with him, I've got him to the point to where he doesn't respond to the internal stimuli. He doesn't respond. He's not interacting with it. He'll tell you when you ask him, yeah, I'm here. I'm still hearing things. I'm still seeing things, but at least now I at least know they're not real and I'm able
Right.
to ignore them. Doesn't mean that he needs to have his freedom taken away from him. But again, go ahead.
The thing with that is because I think some people, it's glamorized, and I use that word very loosely, but they glamorize being like having to go to a hospital. Let's just be real. And the unfortunate part is there are not as many beds as people would like to
No.
think.
Oh,
Right.
that's
And
Yeah.
true.
there are not enough state hospitals to put people who actually need the help and would benefit from that level of care. That's an
Mm-hmm.
intensive level of care. But they
Yeah,
don't have the beds, they don't have the manpower. And a lot of people frown upon them because they don't want them in their communities.
Right.
Right.
that is
My
true.
girl and I both worked at a hospital in graduate school, and it's closed. And
Mm-hmm.
those patients were discharged back into the community, put on Greyhound buses, and they needed the
Hmm.
hospital.
Right.
And so that level of care, it is an intense level of care. It's just like any other trauma unit on a hospital. So I don't want to glamorize it to make it seem like, oh yeah, people are just getting away from going to jail. No, it's an
Hmm.
intense level of mental health
And
therapeutic
Hmm.
care. A lot of the clients that we've seen were, it's sad. I mean, I smile about it, but it is sad for what reasons why they ended up in a hospital.
Right.
And the even sadder part is a lot of people can't go home because they don't have proper
Right.
care. So if you end up stuck there, it's not because for any reason of your own. More or less, it's because they don't have anybody to discharge you to. They don't have adequate housing because, again, group homes don't have adequate beds.
Right.
And
or
so
Nowhere,
wraparound
nowhere hardly
services.
does now because
when we're
COVID.
talking about voting, this is where voting takes
Hmm.
place. When you
Yes.
talk about your lawmakers, the local voting is important because you make decisions about your healthcare organizations and laws that affect mental health and lobbying for better health care for people. It's not just about bigger jails, but if we get hospitals that have more beds, psych units at hospitals that have more staff where they can house more clients longer term, and not just sending people home after 3 days. 3 days is not adequate care for someone who is severely mentally ill.
Well,
Yeah.
have you noticed the programs that you're starting to see on TV, on Netflix, and everything? And they talk about how the jails are the new mental
Right.
health institutions. There's been numerous recently. People just don't know that a lot of our clients, when I worked at the mental health center, would be in and out of
Hmm.
jail, and that's what now they're working with the police officers to get them mental health
Mm-hmm.
training. But and there's the different what are they, CIT officers? They
CIT,
Co-responders.
responders,
co-responders.
mobile crisis
Listen, I
units.
mean,
Yeah.
if
Right.
you have a law that says I will go to jail for just being homeless, but I don't feel safe. And my mental cognition is telling me there's no building that's safe for me to live in, but it's a crime to live under a bridge, and I get arrested for living under a bridge. Was I arrested for living under the bridge, or was I arrested for the voices in my head?
The
Right.
mindset. But you
Right.
need
Because you're loitering or
to
um
to that as well. Khalid, you can go ahead and finish.
well, I was just saying, like, people who are loitering, they don't have any place to go. We start seeing more and more of them visiting the jails, right? You talk to
Mm-hmm.
anybody who works in the
Three hots
jails.
in a
Hmm.
cot, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll tell you, well, most of these are mental health patients. That's the reason why they're there. They don't have anywhere to go. And of course, they're going to be loitering. Of course, they're going to be trespassing, right? And you keep sending them back to jail. So when they do their med pass in jail, because I know nurses who work at the local jail here in Huntsville, the med passes are all psych
Yeah.
meds,
Hmm.
technically. Everybody's getting
Mm-hmm.
psych meds. So they deinstitutionalized a lot of these patients. They took them out of the psychiatric institutions and they'll put them in our, state and federal institutions. That's where they're going. So if people want to know where they are,
There.
you can find
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Due to housing shortages as well, we got to talk about that being a huge issue. I work the crisis hotline, and most of the clients say, like, if I have nowhere to go, like Unique said, my mindset is like, hey, I got a free TV, I got a free roof over my head, I got a free lunch.
It's
It's
warm in the
warm in the
winter.
winter. If
Right.
In the
me and
summer.
Khalil worked at the crisis center,
I got
yeah,
clothes.
and during the winter months, beds will be not available. So we just have to say, hey,
Jump.
like, if you're not in crisis, you're not suicidal, and you don't meet the criteria of the program, we cannot house you.
Well,
And
I
it's
don't I
sad.
don't think there's necessarily just the shortage on housing. It's also the cost of living has
Mm-hmm.
gone up because
Very
when you look at trends in the housing market, an apartment that was normally running you between
five,
$400 and $600 is now going for
1,200,
almost a
Well,
thousand
1,200.
dollars.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then when you also factor in the negative connotations associated with being mentally ill as
Mm-hmm.
well, because again, when most people think of someone who is diagnosed with a mental illness, there are plenty of people that you see or watch in movies or on television or listen to some of their music that you would never know that they're mentally ill because they manage their
Mm-hmm.
symptomology.
Right.
And when people think of mental illness, they think of what they've been shown on television, what they've seen in a movie, what they've read in a book, and it's not always the
No.
best. And so what ends up happening is people have uh, a negative connotation or association with people who are mentally ill, that everyone who's mentally ill is dangerous, or everyone who's mentally ill is going to do something weird or something strange, or they're going to try to do this or they're going to try to do that. Now, some people do those things, but not everyone does those things. And so as someone that works out in the community, I have to, one of the things that I always tell my coworkers all the time is the fact that not only are we providing psychiatric care, but we're also providing
Mm-hmm.
education. I'm educating you about what it means to be mentally ill. I'm educating you about treatment options that are available for you being mentally ill. I'm avoiding.
you're educating the
I'm
community that they're going
Right.
into,
Right.
what
Yeah.
that
I
looks
mean, what to expect, the resources that are available. Like these are all things that I do on an everyday basis, because when you know better, you become what is called a force multiplier. One person turns to two people, two
Right.
people turn to four, and so on and so forth. And then pretty soon, when you see someone and you recognize the symptomology because you've been explained what certain symptomology looks like, you know who to call, you know who to get in contact with, you know who to send that person to. And so
And I mean, you know what the symptoms are, right? If
yeah.
we just were talking about suicide and depression, just being able to ask those simple questions without fear. Are you suicidal? Do you think about killing yourself? Do you think about
Mm-hmm.
not
Right.
existing? That is not, you don't need a license to do that. You don't need to
No.
have sit and 1 day of class to ask somebody, do they want to die? And when you have that opportunity to be able to ask those questions or recognize those signs and symptoms, then you are empowered to connect people with the resources that you're talking about.
Yep.
We look at mental health as something to be afraid of,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like any other health disorder that we might have. It's just one you can't always see until it manifests itself in a behavior. And
Mm-hmm.
so when it does manifest itself in a behavior, empowering people to recognize the behavior and know the tools and resources to combat it, right? If somebody is spending excessively, they're talking really fast, flight of ideas, they have behaviors that are not normal to them, okay, this person might be
Mm-hmm.
manic.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just having a really great day. It's
Right.
gonna
Mm-hmm.
feel like a really great day. Or they're angrier than usual. You're like really, really upset. And it was something so small. And I'm not talking about a flip of an emotion. I'm talking about they were fine 1 week, then a
Right.
Mm-hmm.
week later, for all week, they just seem to be on edge. It's not a period. It's not anything medically explained within their body, but you just can't put your finger on it. When you see those signs and symptoms, instead of just writing it off as a bad day, you're able to communicate effectively to somebody to advocate for help. Hey, maybe we should go to the ER.
Right.
Maybe we should go to a crisis center. You just
Mm-hmm.
don't seem like yourself. Have you talked to a therapist? Have you considered a psychiatrist? Have you
Yep.
even considered your primary
The
care
primary
Mm-hmm.
care
physician?
physician. Yeah.
A lot of the different healthcare providers, what people don't understand is that healthcare providers, they are in tune to what the signs and symptoms are, and they
Yep.
want to connect you with the right people. But you can't be afraid to just talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because that's
And
where it
Yeah.
starts at.
yeah,
Yeah.
just a
The conversation.
conversation.
Like saying,
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
And
need help.
what
I'm not feeling well.
Yeah,
right.
I
Well,
don't.
what we see all the time is family members are it's almost like they're embarrassed or something to get one of their family members help, especially in the African American community. Let's just talk about it. and they see these signs or symptoms and they're pushing it off or they're delaying it. And I'm like, have you taken this person to a psychiatrist, a therapist? Have you taken
Or
them?
they're downplaying it.
Yeah, why are you pushing this off?
Like this for
Like they're just a
years.
little different.
They've been the
Like
black
they're a little
sheep.
different.
They've never talked about
Right.
their functions, or they get in their little moods and they go to their room, and it's like that's abnormal.
That's abnormal behavior, and you know it is because obviously they have friends, they have other people outside, they have different social, networks. They know what's abnormal, and so my problem is we can't sweep this under the rug, all right?
No.
Because somebody can hurt themselves. I've seen
Or
people
someone
who,
else.
or someone else,
Unintentionally. Let's put that in there.
unintentionally.
Unintentionally.
I've seen people who were manic who did not sleep. RJ knows what I'm talking about. All right. When we worked at the mental health center, people who did not sleep for weeks on end and they weren't on methamphetamines. Okay. This
Mm-hmm.
just had a manic episode, a hypermanic episode. And when they were running around and they were driving, and
Mm-hmm.
you guys don't
Mm-hmm.
understand, they're on the roads with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Wrecking cars, hitting people. All right. There's a
And
level.
they don't know what's going on.
They don't even know what's going on. I had one patient, he left his car in the middle of the
Mauricio.
parkway here in Huntsville. He got out the car in the middle. Like, you're like, what? What was going on? Well, he's been up for 3 or 4 days. What do you expect? Anybody gets psychotic after being up for 3 or 4 days. Ask anybody who uses methamphetamines, right? They can't think, they can't process, and you're allowing this. You kept pushing it aside. You talk to their family members. Well, he hasn't really done this before, but he was fine. He you know what I mean? It's like, I thought he was okay. He came home. I'm like, but he was up every single
Did
night.
you
You
not
saw this
know
man,
he was up 3 nights?
right?
So the way I explain this to clients and their family is this right here. If you took a gunshot wound to the chest, would you put that off going to the
No.
doctor?
Right.
If someone stabbed you in the neck, would you put that off going to the doctor? If you broke your arm and you had a compound fracture with the bone sticking through the skin, would you put that off going to the
No.
doctor? Your brain is just as important, if not more important, than anything else on your
Yeah.
body. And like I explained this to my sister. We were talking about it one day, and like I explained to her, your brain is like a rubber band. When you first become unwell and it snaps out, it snaps back into place. When you take a rubber band fresh out of the pack, it's very tight.
Right.
And then the more you stretch it, the more loose it gets until eventually the elastic pops all together. So your brain's the same way. Your brain, when you come into this world out of your mother, you are born with a set number of brain cells. Every time you become unwell, you are causing irreparable brain damage to yourself.
Right.
And I've had this conversation with I don't know how many family members where they will tell you they used to do this, they used to be like that.
Right.
Well, that's not who they are anymore, because your baseline can shift. Mental illness is not solid like a rock. It's fluid like water.
That's
so it
that's all of your healthcare needs.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all of your.
My eyesight is on. It's on a scale.
Yeah.
Everything.
So
when I first got these glasses, because usually I drop down from heaven, and since I have been on this earth, y'all are ghetto here, ghetto. I had these issues before I dropped down. Okay.
Over 30.
But when I hit earth, when these 10 toes hit earth, baby, things started happening that ain't never happened before. And I'm making it light, but I remember sitting in the optometrist's office, and I was about 25, right, with these seeing eyes. And I was like, I've been getting headaches lately.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having to blink a little bit to see the sign. I was just like, I used to be able to see the sign. I'm just tired. I got to stop driving at night because I'm tired, right? That's why I can't see nothing. So I went into the office. She said, ma'am, I think you just need glasses. I said, glasses? I've never worn glasses. I don't need them thing. Sat down, did the test. She said, go ahead and read that for me. I said, BDQPS. Maybe she put that corrective lens on there. I said, oh.
That's
You had to do me like that, Doc. She said, you still think you don't need glasses? I said,
reconsider.
I might need a little corrective lens or two. And what it showed me was just because you were able to do something well at once upon a time does not mean that there would have been trauma, and I found out that there was trauma to my eyes, and it's hereditary. Every woman in my family has an astigmatism.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We all have the same prescription. And
Wow.
I realized just because it didn't show up at that point, that I wasn't immune to it showing up later once it was activated by a trauma. That is the same thing with mental health. It may not show up immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it is triggered by trauma. Sometimes it is just the natural progression of the said disorder. There are
Yep.
certain severe mental health disorders that will show up at a beautiful age of
See, yeah,
18.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And from 18 to 25, your
18 to
question is, am
25,
yeah.
I going to
right?
miss it?
Yep.
Am I going to miss it?
That
Because at
prime time.
26, baby, I done missed all the big ones.
Right.
Okay?
That's that.
I
That's
got
the
the,
prime time. If you
listen,
miss
I got
18 to
I got the
25, you all
medicine
right.
that may not require me to get a long-lasting injectable.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right. Right. Right.
I didn't miss my window. But there are some things where when you understand, okay, this is my family lineage, it's important to have these conversations. If you got schizophrenia in your family, talk about it.
Right.
Mhm.
If you have
Mm-hmm.
ADHD in your family, talk about it. If you have dyslexia in your family, talk
Right.
about it.
Right.
Why? If you even have bipolar, talk about it. Why? A lot of these things have
They
hereditary
do.
components.
And that's the
Yep.
And
conversation is
if we're
important.
not
Hmm.
careful, it can be triggered later on in
Yeah.
life.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, people will have conversations about diabetes, high cholesterol, cancer, hypertension,
Yep.
things of that nature. But
Autism,
then,
Asperger's, have the conversation.
but they won't have the conversations about the mental health, and I think that those are just as important. In regards to knowing that if it's in your family or a
Yep.
part of your family tree, making sure that because when you know better, you can do
Hmm.
better.
Yeah.
You know
Yep.
what to look out for. What options are available for you in
Yep.
regards to
Right.
treatment.
You know what coping skills to incorporate prior to. Had I known at 25 that my eyesight would dramatically change, I would have been more cautious about how I interacted with my eyes. I would have took more preventative measures to make sure I'm not on the computer for long periods of
Right.
time. I'm eating foods that would help with my eye health. I'm just doing things that would prevent me from it degenerating at the speed that it did. But after it, after I went to the optometrist and I accepted that I did have a problem and the problem had nothing to do with in my control. Like I was going to need glasses when I accepted that and I wore the corrective lenses as prescribed, then I'm able to see like everyone else. Do I take my medication as I'm supposed to all the time? No. But I suffer and I realize this is a coping
Hmm.
mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to be able to see at my baseline, if I want to be able to function in the world that is appropriate and I'm able to see things as they are intended, I have to use my coping skill. It's you replace that with whatever we're talking about, with medication, with
Mm-hmm.
individual therapy, with group therapy. These are with
Yeah.
coping skills, with tools. All of these are strategies. Building a healthy network. These are strategies so that you can function at a level that is normalized for you. I use that specifically
For
for
you.
you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
your normal might not be my normal. It is relative and it's subjective to
It
what
is.
you are, what's healthy for you.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my mother don't have the same diet, even though she wants me to. But the things that are healthy for her, being pre-diabetic,
Right.
she's like, no, cut out the listen, cut out the hydrogenated oils. And I said, baby, I love all of my fats, sugars, and salts. Well, I'm already vegan. Okay? I need a little sugar. And she's like, girl, but I realized I have to be careful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with mental health in my family, particularly, depression runs
Hmm.
heavy. So when I have those intrusive thoughts, I have to be careful about that. I have to talk to people. I have to ask myself the hard questions. Have you gotten outside? Have you done the hard work? Even as
Right.
a therapist,
Hmm.
I go down the list that I would do for my clients. I
Yep.
just had a friend that I had to go down the list with. And it's not because I think anything's wrong with them. It's not that I don't think that they're strong or beautiful or capable, but as a responsible friend, hey, I don't want to see you going through anything alone. You don't have to. I can't prevent you from going through it, but I can prevent you from going through it by yourself.
Right.
Well,
For
look,
sure.
what you're speaking to is proactivity.
Right.
Yeah.
And when it comes to mental health, you need to be
Most
proactive.
deaf.
I know
instead of
RJ talks
reactive.
about it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Proactivity instead of
Mm-hmm.
reactivity. If you're
Yep.
reacting, you're probably going off of instinct at this point. All right. Proactive meaning that I'm taking the necessary steps to prevent a psychotic break, to
And even your
prevent
health
something
providers,
bad
Right.
happening.
if you rate your healthcare providers are even being reactive because now I'm trying to control the symptoms as opposed to helping you control the disorder.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, if you're everyone doesn't do well in
Mm-mm.
chaos. When you
Right.
the
Right.
time to be worried about the house being on fire is not when the house is on
I
It's
fire.
say
not when the house right.
You know,
We love to
Yeah.
use that for anybody who
like
lost their house,
like
but we just
like
use it
like
for example.
like when we were kids and we were in elementary school, we had
Right.
fire drills. Why did we have fire drills?
safety
Because
plan.
because it's teaching kids, what to do in case of a fire. So
Listen,
if the school, God forbid, ever catches on fire, every kid knows what to do. I'm supposed to line up, grab the person's hand in front of me. Somebody grabs my other hand, and we walk outside hand in hand until the teacher has a count of everybody.
Right.
You do that so that when it's time to when the rubber meets the road, you can actually
you know
execute
what to
on
do
the plan.
Right.
instinctively.
Yes.
Exactly.
Baby, I knew how to get out my house in the middle of the night. Okay,
Look,
tying the sheets. I knew it all.
in
I
the
was
dark. In the dark.
I had a fire
Like,
phobia. Not gonna hold you. I had a fire phobia. Okay, it was a traumatic experience in one of my family members' lives. But that experience prepared me. I said, "Nah, I'm getting out of this house. I'm gonna wear pajamas every night, so I'm not going outside naked." Somewhere along the way, I've lost that.
don't sleep naked.
Right. We know.
Don't sleep naked.
Proactivity.
In the event of a fire, I'm getting out my window out. I mean, I knew, okay, this sheet is going out that window. I've already know that that's the landing I'm coming down on. I'm sliding off the roof to go here, tucking and rolling down the. I was stressed, okay? I was
Notice
stressed.
she's from
But I
Maryland.
had a plan.
You notice she's from Maryland. That's how it is. How you gotta go? Why you going out the window?
That bad boy.
Check out my
Right?
sheet. I'm tied up. I'm gonna drop down.
Period. Period.
Period.
Out of that 3-story building, that 3-story row home, I'm dropping down out that bad boy. You hear me? Hear me? That car people in a row.
Period.
But I wasn't
Enough
gonna
said.
die.
Enough said.
But I wasn't gonna die.
We living.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yes.
mental health is no different. You have a
Yes.
plan. Know that a fire can happen. It can and it might, and for some people it will because it's inevitable. But once
Yeah.
it does, I have a plan to mitigate damage.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't mean you won't have a little scar, be a little singe. For us black girls, hair might smell a little smoky. But baby, there ain't nothing a little Mael can't cure.
But a little
Right?
rosemary on.
A little Mael, a little rosemary over the tea tree can't cure.
Right.
But no, in all seriousness, no. Plan before. Have an actual fire safety plan. Make healthy schedules. Let your supports know. Find somebody in your life you can trust to say, hey, when I start to do this, you call these people.
Mhm.
Yes.
It's just like having a poison control number. This is my therapist's number. This is the crisis center number. This is the local mental health. If I don't got no money, you take me down to the local mental health center. They'll see me.
They'll see you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is
For
For
sure.
free.
psychiatric unit at the hospital. My favorite nurse is Rosie. You tell Rosie I'm on my way. And when you have that plan in place, you are able to navigate crises with ease and you're
Yep.
able to rehabilitate that much quicker.
Right.
For sure.
Providers aren't the harm, they're here to help. In addition to, people are not
Absolutely.
the burdens. Like, I think a lot of people or clients get into the mindset that they don't want to have the conversations with their family members because they'll start worrying about them. That's what I hear often. Like, I don't want my mom or dad to worry about me, but you are in a crisis and you're talking to a total stranger on the other end of the line looking for support.
Right.
But if you told your family member, they would be like, oh no, we got to get you somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to that embarrassment because people don't want to be seen as weak or less than. And I just want to free somebody from that line of thinking today. It is not, you are not weak for admitting that you have a health issue. No more than I would be weak if I went to the doctors for a cough that has lasted longer than I like. Not even that I need, that I like. A cold that just lasts longer, a headache that lasts longer than I'm comfortable with. If I have a feeling that lasts longer than I'm comfortable with, it doesn't make you weak.
Mm-hmm.
It provides you with a space to say something is not right. And I took the brave step to do something about it. It is brave to come
Yes.
and talk to any of us.
For sure.
Brave to say,
And
you know what, I want to be the healthiest version of me, and I'm trusting you to get me there. I thank my clients in private practice. I thank all of them for even
Right.
choosing to work with me. And
Mm-hmm.
then after sessions, I thank them for just choosing one more day on the couch, because it is great work to do, to treat something that nobody sees, to work
Mm-hmm.
through something that most people would discount or discredit. It takes great courage to take that step. So if you are in a place where you are wondering if you should
Mhm.
do it, it
Mm-hmm.
would be the best thing for you and those
And
around you.
everybody on here
For
seems
sure.
chill and relaxed. So having a therapist that you vibe with is definitely important. I tell clients that all the time because that's what discourages people from seeking help. They're like, well, I had a bad experience with this therapist. We're all melanated. We all get it.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to help.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So if you
right.
see
Mm-hmm.
anybody on the screen that you may want to, yeah.
Hey, you can always contact. Working in the substance abuse field, there's such a horrible stigma with substance abuse. I have a lot of clients who are so afraid, and my issue is substance abuse is a coping skill, right?
Mhm.
Alcohol and drugs are coping skills. People use
Mhm.
them because they usually have mental health issues, and they're using this as a substitute instead of taking certain medication. And I have to tell people, well, if you've been depressed since your divorce, and your drinking went up. There's a direct correlation to your divorce and your
Mm-hmm.
drinking going up, or it's a direct correlation for when you were abused as a child and then you started using substances and you've been doing it since 13, 14. It's a direct correlation to this trauma. I explained to them, well, you were using that as a coping skill.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people who are so confused. Well, a lot of it was it was some conditioning. You had your first drink or drug at 15 or 16. And when you had that drink, you used to suffer from anxiety. Well, the drink took it away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or matter of fact, some people have a drink and it's a little different from them. It didn't take it away, but they smoked some
And it
marijuana
helped.
and that
Yeah.
took it away. And that helped.
Never have I ever met a substance addict. Never. And I will put my license on this. Never have I ever met a substance abuser who said, "No, man, my life is great.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
Right.
childhood was
Hmm.
perfect. You know, I don't feel depressed. I never have a doctor. I work a great job." Never have I
Hmm.
ever. You have
Yeah.
people who use substances who might
Yeah.
say that, but someone who is dependent, chemically
Dependent.
dependent on a
Yes.
substance, nah, baby, you won't
Right.
find it.
Well,
Because
Yeah.
nobody wakes up and says, "I want to be dependent on something for the rest of my life
right.
Yep.
outside of water and food and sex."
Well, look, Unique, you've worked in the field. When you actually give somebody an acute childhood trauma test, right? You do the ACE
Hmm.
test
Yep,
for them, right?
yep.
All these childhood events that might have happened to them, and you have to go through these childhood events with these people and these traumatic events. A lot of people, about 50% of them, score
Right.
high.
Hmm.
No,
Mm-hmm.
50% score high. I've only met a few people, probably more than that.
Yeah.
So when I would do it,
50%.
some people ain't gonna give
They
you the
not giving
full
you
truth, right?
realistics.
Because
Yeah.
I dealt with a lot of men, but the women usually give me,
Honest.
some of them will hide some of their trauma too, but a lot of the men hide some of their trauma. They don't tell you all of it. They're gonna tell you
Mhm.
uncle molested them.
Hmm.
They're not gonna tell
Mm-hmm.
you that they were abused by their stepdad. They're not gonna tell you certain stuff. So some of them, but like I said, 50% or greater,
Yeah, it's
they
Right.
score
normalized.
very high, very high.
Mhm.
So this is substance abuse is a coping skill. So it's a mental health disorder.
It's a symptom of a
Right.
greater
It's,
problem.
it's a symptom
Mm-hmm.
of a greater problem. We're just touching the surface. You have to find new coping skills, healthy coping skills. So just like they were saying about other people who suffer from mental illness, same thing with substance abuse. You're going to
Mhm.
need some new coping skills. You're just doing
Mhm.
substitution at this
Yep.
part. At this
Mhm.
time, you need some healthy coping skills that don't have anything to do with alcohol or drugs.
Right.
I had a substance abuse client. She used substances to cope with life, and when I say now a year and a half in, and people might hate me for saying it, but I was like, I get it. That's a whole hell of a
Yeah.
lot of stuff to forget.
Hmm.
And
Right.
I see why you want to forget all of
Right.
that. When I first met her, she stopped using drugs. I think she was sober at that time for probably 10, 11 months. And I said, well, what do you do all day? I sleep. I said, what you
Yeah.
mean? She said, I just sleep. I said, so you've traded
Yes.
drugging for sleeping? She said, absolutely. Because if I'm asleep, I
Hmm.
can get into trouble.
That's
Hmm.
true.
And so we had to work on, okay, let's not replace what we like to call a maladaptive coping skill. That's a
Hmm.
good mental health word for
Yes.
you guys. Maladaptive. There's no such thing as a good or bad coping skill. It's just one that does not fit into the healthiest version of you.
Right.
Hmm.
And so her maladaptive coping skill became sleeping,
Hmm.
oversleeping,
Mm.
Yeah.
sleeping more than her body needed. It was an unhealthy amount. She was sleeping probably like 15, 16 hours a
Probably
day.
had bed
Right.
sores. You can't
But she
sleep.
would get up to go to the bathroom, but she would go sleep on the couch. She would sleep on the bed. She would just sleep. When the things would
Hmm.
go bad, she would go to sleep for hours. And so she spent less time awake than she actually did sleeping. And she would wake up for session and go right back to sleep.
Wow.
But now this person has a job. She's about to get a new job, but she has a job. She's still sober. She has boundaries, right? She quick to be like, They thought they could talk to me any type of way. Is able to recognize her triggers.
Right.
She'll text me, they trying me again. I said, what you gonna do about it? She's like, well, I'm not gonna go there. But I want to. I said, yeah, but the fact that you're able to realize
Realize
Recognize
that.
it.
Yeah. To separate that. Right.
that's growth. That's
Yep.
progress. And she's like, I think I need a nap. I said, now what kind of nap you talking about? She said, I
Not
only
that
need like
long
an
one,
hour.
baby.
I'm
Don't take that
tired.
long one.
Yeah.
I stayed up late last
30
night.
minutes. Got to get back up.
Listen, she said, I stayed up late last night. I said, all right, I'll give you an hour. But the fact that we're able to have that conversation, she's able to see, yeah, I was wasting my life away because I was afraid to live. I was afraid to feel. I was afraid of slipping back into a pattern that I couldn't control. I can control sleep.
Right.
Nobody looks at me differently if I oversleep. And so when we thought of that, I taught her some adaptive coping skills that were adaptive to the life she wanted, right? Like,
Hmm.
what do you want out of life? Where do you want to be? What do you see yourself doing? She's like, I want to have my dog. I just want a place to live. And I want to be able to have a garden and keep her nails done and get tattoos.
Okay.
I was like,
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Right.
tat it up. I was like, God dang it. Do you even have any more space? She's like, I do. But she's able to find ways now that make her happy, that
Hmm.
motivate her to be the best version of herself. Is it my ideal of the best version for
No.
her? No, but it's
Mhm.
hers.
Right.
And
Hmm.
it's one that I can stand beside and say, you know what? I'm okay with that's okay with
Mhm.
you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So transitioning into our next question, Khalil kind of touched about divorce and molestation and trauma. How do you manage to get over a breakup or divorce?
Set them on fire. No, I'm kidding.
What it
Hey,
takes.
look, Left Eye.
It takes.
Rest in peace, Left Eye.
I'm serious. I'm kidding. Don't call the board on me.
Mm-mm.
No, I'm kidding.
And the breakup ages have started early, like 13. Like today, I talked to a client and he said that they were bullying him about breaking up with a girl. And I'm like, 13?
Child, my parents would have bullied
A
me
belt?
into. You can't say that on the internet.
These,
But my
we
parents
born
have
in
used
the
some
beginning,
things to
so
let me
we
know.
already know what type of time our parents are on. This is a different generation.
Girl, my mama would tell me, you don't like that person and they don't like
Mm-mm.
you. I said, Mom, what you mean they don't like you?
Right. Teenage
That little
love.
boy don't like you. He don't know nothing about liking you. He don't like
Right.
you. You tell him that next time you see him. You don't like him because my
Infatuation.
mama said
What
so.
do you call that? Infatuation.
No, she
Sure.
just they it ain't they don't even none of that.
They didn't give you that.
It's the lack of
Hey, RJ.
And it's not
attachments.
infatuation, it's nothing.
Attachments.
She
RJ
was like,
talked
it's
about
nothing.
this recently. RJ, we talked about the hookup culture, and we talked about kids starting off so young.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And obviously your frontal lobe's not even formed to develop to about 23, 24, and you're trying to make these decisions to be grown and have sexual intercourse and be in these hookups and be in multiple
Swipe left,
relationships,
swipe
and
right.
starting off at
And
13 and 14. and we talked about babies having babies. You know, what type of concept of life do they have at that time? Especially when we think long term, all they're thinking about is instant gratification, short term.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't have anything productive. And you know, with our society right now, the divorce rate is at like what 56%. I think the last time I checked,
It's
when I
over
looked, I had to do a
50%.
About
paper.
60.
It's
That's
over
crazy.
50%.
Yeah.
I think that the key thing to do in order to get over a breakup is take some time for yourself
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
to do some to do some reflection, as well as take some time to heal. You know, I mean, regardless of what type of relationship you guys had, there's going to be wounds that are not always visible
Mm-hmm.
that you are going to need to heal from. And sometimes that healing looks like you being by yourself for an extended period of time, because you'll have people think that to get over somebody, you got to get under somebody or get on top of somebody. And that's not that's not conducive to you being the best version of
Right.
yourself. Taking the time to heal, do some reflection. Was there things that I said or things that I did to contribute to the end of my relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Were there things that I could have said or things that I could have done that could have kept our relationship alive? Like, those are questions that, again, taking that time to self-reflect, taking that time to meditate on the way that the relationship ended, because not all relationships end
Bad.
bad. Like, most people think when they think of the end of a relationship, we automatically think it ended bad. We automatically think that divorce means that the marriage was just
They
bad.
hated each other.
No, sometimes people just grow apart. You know, we grow divergent from each other. I either outgrew you, you outgrew me, or we just grew apart.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Or you
doesn't
realize
necessarily
your goals
Right.
aren't the same anymore.
exactly.
You could have
So
started off different, like, but we wanted different things, and I don't think that we were clear on what we wanted to begin with.
and I think that, you know, taking that time to kind of reassess keeps you from repeating the same poor choices or the same mistakes that you made in your past relationship
Right.
into your future or present relationship. Because I think that for a lot of people, what we tend to do is we don't tend to unpack the baggage. It's like when you go on a vacation or you go on a trip, when you come back, you don't leave your luggage packed from your last vacation.
Well,
And
it depends who you talk to, because first of all, sometimes I do. And
nah.
That's if you leave in the next week.
Too.
You might be leaving the next week.
I gotta just settle and
No.
let myself be home before I have to like wash
No.
clothes again.
Right.
No, I'm unpacking, I'm washing the clothes, I'm putting
But
the
that's
clothes
you.
away.
Right.
And the reason
Nah. First of all,
no, that's exactly what I do.
No, and I'm gonna fight you on that one. I am, because
Well, you leaving
sometimes
the
people do it
clothes
a
in your
little differently.
suitcase? You need.
Huh?
You leaving the clothes in your suitcase for a week
A
or
day or
two?
two.
Not a week or
Even 2 or
two.
3
Not a
days.
week or two. Hold up now. Hold up.
Oh,
Them
that's what I
clothes be
thought you was jumping on that bandwagon. I'm like,
Hold on a
look,
minute.
no,
them
because you
them
might
clothes.
have you might have 2 or 3 wardrobes. You know, hey, look, I
And
know.
I do. And
Yeah,
I do have
some
some
people
I
clothes that I
do.
went over.
you might live
But
like
because I still got some shoes in a bag that I took on my last trip, and I ain't seen them
Look,
shoes since I went
I
on
did
that
the
trip.
same thing with the bag.
However, listen, hitherfore too. And the only reason why I'm fighting Roger Mel on this, and it's just because I wanted to go on to this. Sometimes you gotta just give yourself permission to go through the stages of grief.
right.
You may not
Loss,
unpack
grief,
it
loss.
as quick as somebody else might, right? You
Mhm.
might not be able to just sit with that feeling and just deep dive. Go ahead and give yourself permission to cry and be depressed about that thing, right? It's situational depression.
Right.
Cry, put on the sad music, put on that,
Spin
old
your
Keisha
4
Cole.
days, listen to your Jodeci.
Listen, ain't that like a little Keisha Cole, a
Right.
little, sad music to get you
Oh my
through
Old
it?
school Mary
gosh.
J. Blige, not
Like
no cut.
Mary J.
Yeah, you
Let
need some of that,
ashes
man.
on
Yeah,
every
A
day.
little old Justin Timberlake, Cry Me a River.
you need
Shut.
some of that. You need some of that.
You don't have to unpack that right away.
Like,
Well,
I'm not saying that you got to unpack it right away, but at some point in time, if you are looking to move on and start anew, you got to unpack that, because if not, what you will do is you'll bring your pain and your trauma into someone else's life and bring chaos in over there.
right.
I hear that, but hear me when I'm saying this. So yes, I put it with jest, but I'm saying a lot of times people will move on without that process.
Right.
They move on without the tears. They move on without just admitting that last relationship, I'm gonna miss
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Right?
Well,
This was a loss for me. This was a point of devastation. And I don't care how bad or good the relationship was, how good the breakup was. There are
When you miss
times
that
where you're
person,
just
yeah.
like,
you miss them.
yo,
Well,
that
Unique touched
it's
on
something
it
I think
earlier.
about.
Unique touched on it earlier. People don't equate a breakup with grief or
Right.
loss.
Or trauma.
And so or trauma. So one of the things that I think us as clinicians that people don't always get, and hopefully you have some good therapists that are helping you process, right? So in order to know what an emotion is, right? It might need to get you an emotion wheel, right? You need to be able to label this emotion so you
Right.
can actually
Strengthen your
see.
Yeah.
vocabulary.
Yes, and expand your vocabulary and see where this emotion connects to. All right. Was there some fear out of this because you think that you're never going to find someone else just like this person, right? Or is there anger? What's attached to this emotion, right? Then once we label it, you allow yourself work with hopefully with a clinician and process it so you can eventually move past it, right? But if you don't know that it's grief and loss you're feeling, or it might just come out externally as anger. And so you're upset all the time. People at your work, that they can't
She
really have a good
bitter. She
conversation
bitter.
with you.
She
You
angry
don't want to
now.
go out anymore. She's bitter. She's angry. Well,
Yeah.
there's
Or
something
you
that they're not processing.
you end up
And
drunk texting your ex.
or you're drunk texting your ex,
I'm
right? So
dialing too though.
Because you've not given yourself permission to heal. You've not given
yes,
yourself permission to grieve that. Grief is important at every
very
stage of
important.
Yeah.
life, right?
Mm-hmm.
You grieve losing a job. People don't think about that. Like when it's a loss of a job, there's a process to healing.
Yes.
We always say, you need to heal. What the heck does that
Exactly. I was
mean?
gonna ask
How do
that
you
question.
do it?
What is healing?
Right. How do
What
you
is
do it?
healing?
How do you heal? You admit that there was a breaking point. You have to.
Look,
I
I was
got
in the
Right.
broken.
wrong. It
I
was
was
me. It was
devastated.
the problem. You know,
Even if it wasn't, right? Because sometimes it's not always, and I'll speak from personal experience. I told someone, I was like, look, I'm breaking up with you because I don't want to resent you. You're set on being the person that you are, and I respect that.
mhm,
And I love
mhm,
that for you. I love you
Mm-hmm.
as a person. I'm not leaving because I don't love you.
Right.
I love you, but in loving you, I have to be fair to
right.
you. These behaviors will never
Mhm,
change. And I'm
Right.
wanting something that you will never be able to give me. I had to give myself time and permission to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
I could
Acceptance.
not unpack that in a
mhm.
week because I had to sit with the thing that, you know what? You love this person's potential.
Yeah, but this person cannot
Mm,
meet that expectation that you have.
They don't want to be there. That is
Mm-hmm.
your idea for them.
that's your
So they
idea.
took
Thank
me
you.
some time to get to acceptance. And we communicate heal and we synonymously place that with acceptance. Nah, baby, you gotta go. It's no easy way to
Mm-mm.
acceptance.
No.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta feel all of that crap. You just
Yeah.
got to. You gotta be angry. You gotta have some bargaining. Well, if I had just
That's
if
grief.
I had did this, if I had loved him more, if I had wore a better dress, then he wouldn't have did it. He would then if I had just changed my personality, if I was nicer, if I was calmer, if I had just got back at him, if I cheated back,
That's
baby, it's
that's too
bargaining. It's
much.
a part of
Bargaining.
the stage
Yeah.
of grief.
It's a part of
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah.
That's a
It's a
process.
part of
Grief
it's
process.
literally a part of the stages of grief.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then when you get in that place where you're ready to unpack the bags and you say, you know what? Nah, it wasn't me.
Mm,
I've been that woman and I'm always going to be that girl.
yeah.
Right.
Then you're able to move on. Then you're able to enter into that next relationship with some acceptance, with some accountability. Because I've done the hard work, but you got to do the hard work. I tell all of my clients, I don't care about you going to the next relationship. That is none of my business.
Right.
You'll never have to go to another relationship, but you will get the freedom of releasing you from that
Right.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Do the
divorce is
hard work.
difficult. I've been divorced.
Do
Very
And what?
difficult.
do
When
the hard
children are
work.
involved, yeah, when children are involved, it's even more difficult.
Emotions as
And I have a
well.
child involved.
Mm, mm,
And the thing is, if you don't get help, and I was so blessed to be able to have a therapist, right?
mhm,
All right. And I get it, not everybody's going to be able to have a therapist in their corner or such like that, but they helped me.
mhm,
I was able to process, I was able to understand, I was able to be accountable to the things that I did wrong. All right. I was able to look at me
mhm.
and
Mhm.
learned, because now I'm married again, and it took almost 7 years later, right? I'm married again, but let me tell you something. I know something about
Right.
myself. I know what I want.
Mhm.
I know some of my own issues. I know that I had to mature. I know that I had to do things a little bit different with the second one because she's not like the first one,
Period.
and I can't expect her to be like the first one. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
I had to go through all that, and it took me a
Yeah.
long time to get to a point where I could start a new relationship and work on somebody else, or work on a relationship with somebody else, because I had a lot of trauma from that first one. When someone takes you to court, you know what I mean? And
It's
not
get
knocking her,
real.
she
It's
did what
get
she
real.
was supposed
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to go to court and with custody and this and that. Let me tell you something. I was through. I was through for a minute trying to date anybody, but I had to go through that time with my therapist who helped me. And like I said, a lot of it was my fault. But I still needed a therapist, so that should tell you something. You
And I
know?
mean, even if you don't have a therapist, because as much as I would like to treat everybody, I know that I won't. Just like a doctor doesn't treat everybody who has a
Right.
a biological health care issue. Some people simply won't come, but there are alternatives to it, right? Is it the best? No, it's just like if I go to the internet for figuring out how to get rid of a rash, it might cure the rash. It's not going to be the best way to do it, but it might cure it,
Yeah.
right? In the Black community, if you go to the hair salon, you go to the
Mhm.
barbershop, baby, you're gonna
Barbershop.
get some sage
Get you some
advice.
advice.
You're gonna get you some
Yeah.
sage advice.
Some
And it's
suggestions.
the Black community. But men, correct me if I'm wrong, you go to the barbershop, you're gonna learn something that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna be 100% true, but you're gonna have a different
Right.
perspective. You're like, you know what? I never thought of it that way. I don't know if I ever will after this, but I see where you could have been going with
Right.
that,
The
Right.
infamous group
right?
Right.
chat as
Right.
well. Your friends gonna tell you, like,
You,
baby, you was
you
wrong.
go to your friends. You go to
Right.
people who know you well, and I think that's my advice. Go to people who know and love you when you're going through that grieving period. You have to surround yourself with a community of people who love and care for you, and who not just gonna say, girl, she wasn't, he wasn't
Yeah.
this, or she wasn't that, or boy, I never liked this person for you anyway.
Right.
Get people in your circle who are going to be like, you know what? Whatever you need, I'm here for you.
Right.
If you need to go
Good
out for
support
drinks,
system.
if you need to just come to my house, sit on the couch
Look,
and watch mindless 90s TV shows because you just want to laugh. If you want to watch Friends for hours on end, I'm here for that. Or, that friend never be like, girl, come to my church,
Right. Right.
you never know. But
Somebody.
you gotta surround yourself with people who love you enough to love you back to wellness and say, I don't need you to be strong for
mhm.
me.
Right.
I
Mhm.
don't need you to get rid of it or downplay this person. You love this person. I don't expect you to just trash them
Right.
because
Right.
you love them, right?
Mhm.
But I expect you to sit here. Let's go to the beach today. Maybe I'm talking about what I would need.
Right. Yeah,
And
I think
I'm
you are.
here
I'm booking a
But
trip.
look,
We going somewhere to
but look,
another
I
island,
think
and you
you
for
hit
know,
you.
on it. Someone who's going to support you, right? Not someone who's going to be like, "Hey, man, come on, let's drink, let's pour up, let's smoke, let's do." No,
look,
no,
let's
no,
let's
no.
run,
Somebody's
Yeah.
going to
let's
allow you to
run through some
process this,
homies or
man.
something. Ah, this,
Right. We can sit down, play some cards, watch some TV, do whatever, go for a ride. Somebody gonna let me process. And who's not gonna sit there and give me all this negative energy. I need someone who's gonna have some sort of spirituality. I need somebody who's gonna help me get through this, not someone who's gonna offer me a joint. You know what I mean? That's not what I'm
Mhm.
looking for. I'm not 17.
mhm.
Mhm.
I'm looking for
Now
somebody
wait a
to give me
minute.
some
Wait a
insight.
minute. There's
You
medicinal
know,
use.
you
Man,
need gonna
like,
pop up on
hey,
that
that's
one.
good. That's right.
You
Also,
know,
people,
there's some
but guess what?
medicinal use of things
My
now.
knees ain't bad. I don't have
Some
glaucoma, and
microdosing.
my back ain't
I'm
bad.
all game
I
for a
don't
little
need it.
Give
microdose.
you a little CBD
Look, my
gummy.
knees all right. I ain't got glaucoma. I don't need it. Hey,
That's a little CBD
so
gummy, but
what we doing? Chaz? What we doing? What we doing? Because this
it's
about time,
it's
man.
almost time we wrapping up. So, what would you all tell anybody far as resources? Just drop a resource or tell them one of your favorite things that you may recommend to a client.
Or a person looking to be a
Yeah,
client.
that too.
For a client, don't miss your sessions.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's the most
Well,
important thing.
If you can
You
be a
you you
client,
you can't receive the help if you ain't available.
Right.
you ain't gonna get the blessing, and if you ain't in the place to receive it, okay?
There you
Can't
That's
go.
catch the
right.
ball, ain't got the mid open.
Right.
Uh, come to session if you
Come to
are
the
a client.
sessions.
If you're looking to be a client, Psychology Today,
Yes.
Therapy
Hmm.
for Black Girls, uh, a quick Google search, therapist in my area, and be honest about what you need.
hmm
Yep.
Don't be afraid to put it all out there. You're not going to get committed if you say something. They're not looking
No.
to call the cops on you if you've done something devious.
No.
If we
Mm-mm.
have to call the cops, it's for your health and safety. So
Right.
Mm-hmm.
be honest. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you done something off the wall, it's better that we know than if we find out.
Right.
Yeah. Because at least by us knowing, we can at least try to
Right.
advocate on your
hmm
behalf.
Right.
But I do second what Unique said, especially about being honest. We work with treating your mind. We can't read it.
Come on.
Here we
Like
go.
we cannot read it. So many people think that, I'm pretty good at guessing things, but normally that's if I've known you for a
hmm
while and I've watched you, then I can kind of like suss out certain things. I can kind of
Mm-hmm.
I get a feel or a vibe about certain things. And it's that, some most times it's actually pretty spot on, but I can't read your mind. So I won't know what you need if you don't tell me what you need or
Right.
what you're going through, because care and treatment, regardless of your regardless of whatever you're going through, it's supposed to be
hmm
individualized.
Yeah.
I can't provide you the individualized care that you require or that you may need if you're not giving me the information I need to be able to compile the best treatment modality for
Right.
you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to add on to that. So, working in the substance abuse field, one of the things I tell my clients is that when you come into this, all right, and you're telling me you want to let this go, but you come into me like this, I can't help you if you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
open up and give it
Just
to me,
like the
right?
bowl.
Yeah.
And you hold on to it for dear life, but yet you want to let this go. You're going to have to let it go because I can't take it from you. And I wish I could, but I can't take it from you. You're going to have to let it go. And that applies to not just substance abuse, it applies to a lot of different areas, trauma, healing, all those different things. You're going to have to let it go. You're going to have to put it down on the altar if you want this
Mm-hmm.
healing. And when I get people and I see they're so bound up, you know what I mean? And they don't want to release some of this stuff. And like RJ said, you don't want to be honest. You don't want to tell me what's going on. And you're holding on to this, but you want to let it go so bad. Then you're going to have to let it go in the name of Jesus. You have to do something.
Let the shake the devil off.
Look, I'm gonna add it like this. Like that lady said, y'all better come up here and get you one of these. Or
Yeah.
lady person,
Yeah.
come and get you one of these. If you've never tried therapy, if you've never tried group work, if you've never tried a support group, give it a shot. You don't have to be going in a crisis to do it. I've sat on many couches,
Yeah.
and I advocate for sitting behind it and in front of it. I love the couch. Because it is a safe space. I tell my clients, it is your session. I just facilitate a safe space.
Yep.
Yours. It's literally the only place in the world where you can say whatever the heck you want to say,
Judgment
Right.
free zone.
and it's judgment free. You pay somebody to be judgment free. Like that's just the job. It comes with the
Mm-hmm.
territory. You can say, you know what, I want to paint my walls hot pink and walk around my house butt naked, and they just gonna say, okay.
Sure. That's
Okay.
you. Enjoy it. Do you, boo.
As long as you
Just
feel
make
good.
sure that when you got to answer the door, put some clothes on.
Put some clothes on when you
You gotta do that if you don't want to.
That's
Oh
all we
yes, you
ask.
do.
Just cover your Tinder bits. You got just cover your Tinder bits.
It's not a funny story probably for that one, but cover up if he
I
comes
mean,
to your house.
listen, being out in the community, people do that. They answer the door, look through the blinds, then open the door. Oh my God, I didn't know you were out here.
Well, you
So
just
you
look
make
through
it
the blind.
you. I just saw you look through the blinds. Do you make it a habit of answering the door, completely first day in this world nude?
Who? Me?
No, just that's what I asked the lady. That's what I asked the lady. I was taking my client home, and he rings the doorbell because he didn't have a house key. There's a giant window right next to the door. I see his mom peep through the blinds, then commence to open the door. Oh my God, I didn't know you were out here. I'm like, what? I just saw
She
you look
didn't.
through the
She
Know
wanted
he's
you
blinds.
to
out
see
there.
that,
No,
RJ.
she just saw her kid was out there. And that was it. She didn't expect it to be another guest besides the kid. She don't mind if her kid sees her booty butt naked.
Hell, I don't want my mama answer the door naked.
That never came out of her booty
Who
butt
does
naked.
that? I don't care. Get some clothes on, mama.
Put them scrubs back on, mama.
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 Uh-uh.
But no. In
Mm.
all seriousness, bringing the bus back to the road. No, for real though, guys. If you
Right.
are looking for a therapist, you can check out my Instagram. I have 5 tips at Good Health Practices. I do have tips to help you. Some questions you can ask to know if a therapist is right for you. It's just like any other healthcare provider. One size does not fit all.
Mm-hmm.
Every couch is not the same, just like every doctor's office is not the same. So if you
For
don't
sure.
like them, don't feel bad. Get a new one.
Get another
Buy
one.
another
Get
one.
another one. And another
And
one.
another
And
one. And
another one.
another one. As DJ Khaled said. And another one. All right, we're going to wrap up. And was there anything else anybody had to say?
Keep your mental health healthy.
Happy Mental Health Month
Have
and happy Memorial Day.
Yes.
RJ,
trust the process.
go hard or go home. Therapist doesn't work as hard as you do.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, live the best life. Live the best life that is possible for you, man.
Yes.
And if you got to talk to somebody to do it, don't be afraid to live your best life.
All right. Peace, love, and blessings.